Damn, that's it? I did enjoy the 3-episode-a-week drop, but now it's over and I am feeling like, someone took away my toys. It feels like things were just heating up and now boom, it's over and we have to wait for season 2 and 3. But enough of my complaining and my first world problems. Let's discuss these final 2 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and by the end of this video, I'm gonna give you guys my overall score on this first season. Let's discuss. We finally have the classic Spider-Man suit, and I am so glad to see it. It just looks so awesome. I didn't have any problems with the different versions of the suit that he had in the series. The white suit did look really cool, but come on, we all came here to see that classic suit, so I'm glad it's back. Episode 9 starts with a really amusing interaction between Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn. As we know, Otto Octavius got arrested at the last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, I can't remember exactly which one it was now, and Norman is here to gloat about it. Which, like I said, their bond, it really gives me vibes of Insomniac's Spider-Man 1, because in that game there was very much a rivalry between Otto and Norman, and that rivalry remains intact in this show. And we all know that Norman is a bad guy. I don't think anybody was really believing that he's going to be a good person throughout the entirety of the series, but it is really cool to finally see that starting to take place, because if this little interaction showed you anything, it's that Norman is a very petty, spiteful, and jealous possibly guy. And I am so in love with this version of Doc Ock. Every time he's on screen, I am just extremely excited. I swear this is what they need to copy the mold for when they do eventually bring Doc Ock into the MCU. And by the way, they better do it. I know that we've seen Doc Ock a couple of times in live action, but this is the MCU. I want an MCU version of Doc Ock, and I want it to be just like this guy. We're finally seeing the origin for Tombstone. During a repeat battle between the 110 gang and the Scorpions, Lonnie ends up getting exposed to a canister that was seized from Otto's lab, and its contents appear to have created the man with the invulnerable skin that we all know as Tombstone. It was a pretty awesome scene, and not just because we got to finally see Lonnie become Tombstone, but because we got to see a repeat fight between Spider-Man and Scorpion. And just like in the previous episode, Spider-Man is still very much bothered by his interaction in his previous fight with Scorpion. Because at first during this fight, he seems like he's frozen in place, unable to move. He's just having flashbacks of getting his ass kicked. And I think that this is a very important lesson for Spider-Man to learn. His fear is appropriate because he is immortal. He can get hurt, he can get killed. And so that's why it's nice to see that Peter is coming to terms with the fact that he can get his butt kicked. And what do you guys think of Peter losing a bit of control of his temper? We know that in the previous episode, Norman told him that, Peter, you are pulling your punches and your enemies are not going to. You have to be way more aggressive and assertive if you want to truly beat crime. And this version of Peter doesn't even have the black symbiote on him yet. Can you imagine how the symbiote is going to amplify his temper if he already has a temper going on? By the end of episode 9, we find out that Norman has been secretly trying to replicate the spider that gave Peter his powers. And I'm not exactly sure why, but for some reason I kept thinking of the Spider Slayers during this scene. You know that grumpy scientist that he has working at Oscorp? That guy, he kind of gives me an Alistair Smythe vibe. Is that guy like an alternate version of Alistair Smythe? Are the Spider Slayers coming next season? I don't know why, it's just a weird hunch. Moving to the final episode, we do get to see the full emergence of Norman's Dark Passenger. By the way, that is a Dexter reference for those who have not seen the series. And things get pretty trippy because we find out that Norman wants to open a portal to another dimension, but there is somebody powerful that takes big issue with this, and that person is Doctor Strange. And it turns out the old Doc had a good reason to be against this plan, because as soon as Norman does open that portal, a black symbiote walks through. And by the way, a very familiar black symbiote. I think we've seen that symbiote before. Oh yeah, in the first episode, the episode where Spider-Man got his powers. And we really get that chicken and the egg paradox going, because it turns out during this interaction, a spider that Norman was working on to try to replicate Peter's powers ends up going through a portal and biting Peter in the past. Therefore, Norman is indirectly responsible for creating Spider-Man. But don't let that hurt your head. Trying to figure out time travel is just a clusterfuck that you cannot solve. This fight with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, it was pretty awesome, and I really enjoyed seeing Peter's reaction to some of Doctor Strange's moves, especially when Doctor Strange used the Time Stone to get himself out of a jam. Peter seemed really interested by this, and it just made me realize how much of a bummer it is that the current MCU Doctor Strange no longer has that Time Stone. We are losing some really cool Doctor Strange powers by him not having that. And at the end of of this episode, we do get some setups for the next season. We get to see Daredevil again, and he's talking to a woman that he calls Finesse. I don't know much about her, but I did look her up. And also, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I heard the Daredevil theme from Netflix playing when Charlie Cox's Daredevil was on screen. It's awesome. Going back to Tombstone, there's a really small moment that people might have missed, but when he is talking on the phone to his mom, if you look closely at his fingers, you'll see that there's a bit of white on his hand. I guess that means that he is going to start becoming the white guy that we know from the comics, which I'm sure is not going to help his mood at all. I mean, turning all pasty white, the superpowers are cool, but becoming that, I don't know if that's a good trade-off. We also get to see Doc Ock in his prison cell planing what will eventually be his octopus arms. That was pretty cool to see. But perhaps the biggest drop of this episode was Aunt May going to prison to visit Richard Parker. What? Peter Parker's dad is alive? In the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, we got to explore a bit more of Richard Parker's past and find out just a bit more about what led to his disappearance and Peter's subsequent adoption by Aunt May and Uncle Ben. And it seems like maybe this series is going to be leaning into that kind of concept a bit as well. Why are they lying to Peter about his dad still being alive? What's going on? I can't wait to find out. And really quick, who here spotted the Watcher in the sky? You know, the guy from What If, played by Jeffrey Wright? He's there. He is in the sky when Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are talking on the bridge outside of Midtown High. The camera pans up to the sky and you see him clear as day. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to see the Watcher make his live action debut, even if it's just Jeffrey Wright's head floating in the sky. I'll take it. Overall, I found this to be an extremely excellent series. I was more than pumped every Wednesday to go check out the latest episodes, so this is a very solid effort from Marvel and Disney, and I am looking forward to seeing the next 2 seasons. I love the way these characters are being portrayed. I love this animation style. I love the story so far. It all just feels like, it feels way more mature than I remember cartoons feeling. So with all that being said, I'm gonna give this series a 9.5 out of 10. It's a damn near perfect show, and I'm struggling to really find anything to complain about. As a matter of fact, I actually can't think of anything about this series that I did not like. So I guess maybe that makes it a 10. Put your thoughts on this series in the comments, and as always, if you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to hear more things from me, well, you should subscribe to this channel. Later.